Good afternoon, everyone joining. We'll just give it a couple of minutes, wait for a few more people to join before we start. All right, good afternoon, everyone joining, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, I'm just going to run through a couple of things on our end. Please note this webinar will be recorded and all attendees will be muted throughout the webinar. And to ask any questions, please use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screen. And when the webinar ends, you'll be directed to complete a short survey for us. This will take less than a minute to complete and your feedback will be anonymous. And if you have dialed in as a guest today, you can view more information about becoming a member and having access to more events like this at www.sapusers.org/register. And if you have any questions, please contact us at support@sapusers.org. I'll hand over to David and Martin now, who'll be speaking on the rest of this webinar.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar this afternoon. So we're going to be talking you through managing the key stages of your SAP S/4HANA transformation with myself, Martin Jones, and David Lees from Basis Technologies. So a little bit about ourselves. So my name is Martin Jones. I head up the SAP consultancy team within T-Systems Northern Europe. I've been working with T-Systems now for 7 years, but I've been working on SAP for over 23 years now, starting in the applications and operations area and being a technical solution architect for many years now, and concentrating now really on the strategic planning around moving customers to S4 and using partner tools as well to be able to enhance that experience. David.
Thanks, Martin, and great to meet everyone here. So I'm David Lees. I'm the CTO at Basis Technologies. I know I don't look it, but I've been in the SAP kind of ecosystem for probably over 25 years now, from the early days of R2 and early versions of R3. I've been with Basis for about 5 years, and prior to that, I spent the majority of my career at Procter & Gamble. So I was on the kind of the customer or user side of SAP for the majority of my career. And we'll cover a number of things today, but at the end of it, hopefully you'll have a few takeaways and you'll know a little bit more about Basis and how we fit into the T-Systems offerings and capabilities. Martin, back to you.
Thank you, David. So what we're going to do today, we're not going to do death by PowerPoint. We're basically going to go through some key stages for you. We'll give an overview of both companies a little bit so you get a better understanding of who we are and what other offerings that we do. And then we'll go through some of the more S4 pieces. So T-Systems has a global SAP capability. We've been partners with SAP now for well over 20 years. We have a global delivery presence around the globe to be able to deliver SAP managed services, as well as lots of different partner offerings, as well as many managed services as well along that as well. We're one of the key strategic partners of SAP that have got all the main certifications. As you can see, we have those certifications are in the middle of the screen now. And we've got over 650 customers worldwide where we deliver end-to-end SAP delivery. We also concentrate as well on the non-SAP side of it as well. So for companies and that, we also manage everything for them. So we can be that end-to-end service provider. We're also a cloud agnostic company, so we're able to deliver services on any of the hyperscalers, so from Microsoft Azure, AWS, and Google. So that gives our customers more flexibility and that to be able to deliver those parts. Next slide, please. So in the news recently, it was now announced that T-Systems is now a premium RISE partner with SAP. So this enables T-Systems to actually deliver all of its services, but also for SAP as well. So whereas before we were managing customers as part of our multi-hybrid cloud operations, we can now add RISE in with that as well. So that means that we're actually a third-party supplier to SAP to be able to offer RISE products and delivery. So T-Systems can provide not only the public hyperscalers, but also on our private cloud offering as well. So that enables us to be able to manage any form of capability within SAP for our current customers and obviously new customers as well. So we really focus on the S4 implementation to go with that as well, and offering application management and modernization and lots of other digital innovations and advisory services and capabilities to add to that. So an all-in-all encompassing approach to that delivery of SAP, whether you want to go RISE for your licensing or whether you still want to go with standard on-premise licensing for perpetual licensing to S4. Next slide, please. So one of the key things that T-Systems has acknowledged within the industry is there's not one strategy, but 3 strategies required. And that we noticed that a lot of areas are really looking at just move into S4, move into the cloud. But one of the key things that is missed out is the SAP ECC end-of-life strategy. So really looking at what are my support options and critical dates for ECC, including my database. So up until recently, most of the database manufacturers were only offering support until April 2027. In the last couple of weeks, that's changed now up to December 2030. But also there's issues around if you're haven't Unicode compliant on your system. So if you need to do Unicode conversion, then your support date is end of support date is 2025, but also you need to use a lower level of operating system as well. So it's really looking at all those criticalities and that within your current ECC system to see when that end of life strategy is. We also need to look at how do you manage ECC and S4 at the same time. So really looking at having those 2 different scenarios. And David's going to talk through some of those areas today and how T-Systems and Basis Technologies work together to be able to deliver those services. Another part of this is what happens to my existing system when I transform to S4. So we deal in a lot of historization for old systems so that you can actually really get rid of the SAP licensing and also still have a read-only solution to look at that data. Looking onto the S4 strategy and value case, though, we have the capability of looking to see what, I just lost my screen a second. We look at the understanding your business strategy and your business processes. So you really need to look at where your ECC system is and then where your S4 system is going to be. We need to look at those business processes because a lot of the S4 side is now more industrial unified, and also that there's keeping the core clean and really making sure that you're not using heavily customization within that platform. So really looking at defining your ERP system requirements, creating that plan for your business, and then using that to really choose your ERP delivery partners and your migration options, because there are so many different variances that you can do, but it's also looking at that strategy now. We know that most customers don't really want to look at this until 2027, but there's lots of pre-steps which can be helpful along the way to really look at enhancing that value case and also being more cost effective in how it's delivered. The other part of this as well is what hyperscaler do you use for SAP? Now that's a common question that I get asked quite a lot. The problem is SAP can be used on any hyperscaler, and the look and feel of SAP really doesn't change. So one of the key things that we look at is really where your non-SAP systems are going to be, and really sort of like so they connectivity methodology between the two of them, it means that SAP normally sits well in the middle of that ecosystem. And what about your non-SAP as well? So really looking at that complete hybrid approach of whether you want to keep that within the same cloud, or looking at how then the connectivity happens, because most SAP systems talk to non-SAP systems a lot of the time, or get delivery from them. Next slide, please. So at T-Systems, what we really try and talk with customers with is actually creating a transformation solution vision. Now, this slide is really busy, and I apologize for that. But what we're trying to show here is what we look at with a customer for the next 6 years. So really looking at where they are today and taking them to that 2030 date. Now, really looking at all the different type of assessments that we've got. So in this slide at the bottom, you can see that we've got a couple of phases in Magenta, which is the ones that T-Systems are looking at. And then obviously from Basis, we've got the key strategy, preparation, execution, and post-transformation phases, which then link back into the way that with SAP's methodology. So if we just take the first step of that, so the landscape assessments is really looking at what you've got today and what you're really going to have tomorrow. So really looking at that complete design of where you want to be. The migration to public or private cloud. So really looking at where you are actually going to sit your systems. So you'll probably have systems today, but you may decide that when you move to S4, you might transform them onto a public cloud or onto a private cloud. So really looking at that migration and how that moves forward. Also looking at the optimization to S4. So that business transformation of how you're actually going to move to S4. So if you're going to do brownfield, greenfield, or a hybrid version of the two. And that, so really looking at how that rollout is going to work. So are you taking data across with you? Are you going complete greenfield and starting from scratch again? Or are you just going to do a brownfield transformation where you don't switch anything on, and then you're going to look at several projects later on? As we spoke before, historization. So that's a key part of all of this. So what do you do with all that data that you've had? Most SAP systems, a lot of companies don't archive, or if they can archive, they don't archive a lot of data. And we're working with customers at the moment that have probably got over 15 years worth of data within their systems. So do you really want to take that into your new S4 system? In most cases, not. And what we're seeing is a lot of customers are now looking at historization, and there's a lot more historization products coming onto the marketplace now, where customers are able to leave that data in a read-only format, and that, but it's not using an SAP license. So you're not governed by that. You're also not having any issues with SAP software releases or operating systems, and that later on that you'd probably need to upgrade. Next slide, please. So what T-Systems has designed is the Magenta Pathway. So the one question I get asked quite a lot of times is, why does T-Systems use partners? So with this Magenta Pathway, we have a lot of our partners within this strategy. And the key thing that we've come back to is that we use best-in-class partners to deliver some of these capabilities. And the reason for that is we can't do everything. We have to rely on partners which have capabilities and that's what they specialize in. So again, we work with Basis Technologies quite a lot. They've been working on their areas for over 20 years. So it makes sense for us to be able to use that capability and then bring that into a solution for our customers. So as you can see, that all of the options here have a QR code. If you scan any of those, they will go to another website, which will give you a lot more in-depth detail of each of the offerings that we have. And these can be available to customers from T-Systems as a one-stop shop where we do this end-to-end with the customer. And you don't need to be a managed services customer with us to actually come to us and actually get information on how to transform your system. We're specializing very much at the moment in advisory capability services to be able to show customers how to move forward with their S4. It's very difficult. There are a lot of moving parts in moving to S4, and a lot of people don't even know where to start. And that is what we're trying to do, is trying to use some of these partner products to really help customers engage and really start looking at the pre-steps that you need to look at before moving to the hyperscalers or moving to S4, and really looking at what capabilities and that you need to employ. So just taking a quick moment to go through some of these, and that I'll let you, if you go back a slide, please. I'll let you scan the QR codes, and then you can have a look at the more detail, and we can actually give you a full copy of this when we actually send the presentation out to you as well. So the S4HANA Sim game, we use that to actually show customers what S4 looks like, because even though customers are being asked to move to S4, there's a lot of people out there that still don't know what S4 looks like or what it can look like when you actually configure it properly with the Fiori interfaces. Initial assessments, as we've seen in the previous screens, and that can really look at what you've currently got today and where you need to go to. Creating your business blueprint. And this is one of the key fundamental things, looking at what business processes you have today to what business processes you'll have tomorrow, and looking very much strategically at S4, because there's a lot of things which have been deleted, completely removed. There's new Fiori apps, there's new mobile apps, and there's new capabilities which are more industry standard to what there was in ECC. So it's very difficult for some customers to actually understand what their system is going to look like. So we have a partner that specializes in that area to actually give that information. Cloud strategy is really looking at where is best for your hyperscaler. So we do a lot of work at that with customers to actually be able to look at public and private clouds to actually give that information. Data strategy again, archiving, not to archive, really looking at what data is forensically within your system and what impact that data is going to have on your move to S4. And that's a very key, critical area to look at. Change and optimization and automation. Now, this is a very key strategic part of managing ECC, and also as you're managing dual environments moving to S4. And David's going to take you through a lot of this area shortly after I finished. Test management optimization as well. We look at how to create the minimal test environments, but in a more automated fashion, being able to create test systems which with only the data that you really need, but also encompassing that with Basis Technologies toolkit to be able to look at that change and optimization automation piece. So really looking at strategic intelligent testing. Digitalization and big data is a very big thing at the moment with where you're going to put your reporting data. Looking at ECC to S4 code assessment. So a lot of custom code still will be needed in S4, even though there is keeping the core clean, because we still have applications that need to talk into SAP. So having that assessment of what code can be automated and changed without having to have costly developers. Then again, the migration to S4. So looking at that full migration to S4 and looking at that in a hybrid mode. So taking the best of Greenfield, the best of Brownfield, and actually doing that in a hybrid fashion to be able to actually move customers in a more easier approach and not having to start again. The problem that we've got at the moment in the industry is there's not a lot of customers have moved to S4, and there's a lot more still to go. And we're going to find it very difficult to actually have the capabilities and the number of staff to actually do the migrations by 2030, the way that it's going at the moment. So looking at a lot of that automation, being able to move to S4HANA in a lot more easier mode and fashion, and that is really helpful for customers. We don't want customers to be spending on long 5-10-year projects to move to S4 when they're already then trying to actually enhance their business with other projects. Moving on to historization is really looking at what's left behind. We've already discussed this, and it's really key to have that information from an audit capability and to be able to still have that data looked at. and then having that as our move on to S4 with the hyperscalers. What T-Systems has also looked at as well is a one SAP service. So really helping customers, no matter who they are, to actually bring some of these packages together, whether that be license management, managed services, the multi-cloud SAP ecosystem that we provide, or looking at S4 transformations and application management. Bringing all that together as a one SAP service, we can do the best for our customers, current and new, and really looking at how we can drive and help customers actually drive their way forward into S4. Next slide, please. So obviously today we have David Lees from Basis Technologies with us, and he's going to take you through some more of what Basis Technologies capabilities are and how they work with T-Systems. So these are just some of our other partners that we deal with. And as you can see, it is quite a number of different partners, but these are our core strategic key partners that we work with to be able to provide offerings to our customers. And that it enables us to actually deliver lots of different areas for customers who are trying to actually achieve different things. And as a one-stop shop, it means that customers don't have to go out to the marketplace to try and find partners to do that. We've already done the hard work for you. So with that, I'll hand over to David Lees from Basis Technologies, who'll take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin. Great to be here, and I'll try and cover off some of the reference points that you mentioned that I'd be talking about. So like Martin referred to earlier, we've been in the SAP change and release automation space for over 25 years as a company. We have been founded and staffed and have a large number of former SAP alumni, as well as other customers like myself coming from Procter & Gamble. We've got a global presence, so the UK and German flags on the previous slide are two of the markets that we operate in, but we actually have offices also in the US, in Australia, and elsewhere. You can see a selection of our customer logos on the right-hand side here, generally all well-known global or regional brands. And they come to us with a similar challenge, I would say, which is around helping them optimize their SAP change automation. Next slide, please. So we're going to look through the journey from the perspective of these four phases, from the initial strategy phase through preparation, execution, and lastly, post-transformation. Just a few things to consider. Some areas in which we play, some areas that may be adjacent to where we play, and obviously all of that in conjunction with your SI or partner of choice. So let's start with strategy. A few things to think about as a strong foundation for your journey to S4. And the first thing to think about, just as you're also considering how to move there, are you going to go greenfield? Are you going to go brownfield? Is there a hybrid kind of route that you want to take? I think S4 is also the kind of opportunity point to look at your actual landscape design as well. So do you start from, are you starting from a global template? Do you want to move towards a global template type of environment? Do you have a separate track for project from BAU? Again, is that something that you would be looking to introduce as part of your move to S4? Do you want to drive landscape simplification or consolidation, reducing the number of systems? And obviously all of these factors may influence which approach is the most appropriate. In some cases, if you want to go into S/4HANA public cloud, for example, greenfield is your only option. If you want to keep your landscape looking exactly like it is today, then brownfield would kind of likely be the way to go. But it's worth just having a think about that target landscape design as one of your early kind of strategy drivers. And obviously that's an area that we kind of bring up, or that we focus on, because supporting those more complex customers that want to handle a global template and manage that with the right tooling and automation in place is one of the areas that we support. The second consideration here, and if this is your first major upgrade, if you initially deployed ECC, then dual maintenance might be something that you're encountering for the first time. If you're looking to go from ECC to S4, and that process could take you 9 months, 12 months, 24 months. We have some customers that have a very large SAP estate, and for them, this could be a multi-year journey. Then one of the things to consider is how all of the changes that you're continuing to make on your ECC systems throughout your journey to S4, which of those are relevant or applicable to be retrofitted or dual maintained into your new S4 environment, and to try and help in the automation of as much of that as possible. So dual maintenance is something to plan for. It's certainly not something you want to impose a kind of a change freeze on your business throughout the transformation. Similarly, it's not something you want to kind of encounter as an unexpected risk or issue, which is putting your transformation project at risk. The third one is to think about the new cloud technologies that you may already be piloting or be running, but looking at the end of life of PIPO, for example, moving to the BTP from an integration platform standpoint, also looking to the BTP as an option for platform development related capabilities. Like Martin mentioned, there's a continuation, I would say, of on-stack developer options, in addition to the side-by-side extensibility options that BTP itself provides. And then if you're not doing a big bang, brownfield, then you're potentially considering phased migrations. And as part of those phases, kind of how are you going to be grouping them, bundling them? I think in one of Martin's slides, it talked about deploying a global template, maybe into a pilot region or business unit, followed by the phases or waves to continue that rollout throughout the rest of your business or throughout the rest of the globe. So these are some of the areas to consider as part of your strategic planning for the S4 transformation. Next, we come on to the preparation phase. So these are some of the things you can do before you start. So where can you streamline? Where can you clean up? And that includes getting rid of no longer relevant master data, because there's a certain amount of master data kind of harmonization work to be done with things like business partner, the merging of the vendor and the customer entities in S4. Historical data, do you still have data in those systems that you're looking to potentially do a brownfield migration of? Or if you're looking at hybrid, what is the subset of that historical data or master data that you want to bring across? That's obviously something that you would need to spend some time on in preparation. Custom code, similarly, we deal with obviously some of the larger, more complex companies around the world who have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of custom objects in their SAP landscapes that they've built over the last few decades. And there is a significant portion of that custom code that may be redundant, that may be unused. And with the opportunities to try and move back to standard as well, that may bring down the amount of needed custom code even further. So there's no point in remediating unnecessarily custom code to make it ready for HANA and ready for S4. So again, more you can do up front to identify and potentially remove that custom code from your systems, or even if you're considering more the greenfield or hybrid approach, what are the custom solutions that you feel you can't live without, that you don't believe SAP has kind of provided yet a standard solution for, that you will want to take with you, and identifying that and kind of preparing that in readiness for your execution phase would make sense. Similarly, around users and interfaces, the more you can do to clean up at the beginning, kind of before you start, the better, and it's worth planning for that. We would obviously say deploy some tooling prior to your S4 project for ActiveControl, and I'll touch on this a little bit later. Our kind of flagship change and release automation solution that will help in managing your life before, during, and after, but especially getting ready for that dual maintenance phase. Taking some of these things off the critical path will simplify the ramp up for the S4 program itself. And lastly, start thinking about, because if you want to gather data around usage of interfaces or custom code, etc., check the parameters that you have in your systems today. How much usage data are you collecting? Are you aggregating that usage data in any way to look for some of the interfaces or custom code that may be used less frequently around quarter end or year end and that sort of thing? Because you obviously don't want to be caught out by any of those unexpected surprises. Okay, next we move into execution. So during the execution, there's obviously a lot to do. There's a lot of functional work that I'm not going to kind of focus on, because that's not our area of specialty. But governance and automation around your dual maintenance to avoid the need for a change freeze for your business. Thinking about how you're going to strategically build out your S4 landscape. So you're going to start off with a dev system. Is that going to be a copy of your existing ECC dev system, or are you going to copy your existing ECC production system, whichever way you go? Or if you're looking at hybrid, some kind of shell in which you'll copy the system but drop all of the data from that system in order to kind of have a blank sheet to some extent, but still retaining all of your custom code that you still have left, and all of your configuration and customizing to then bring across the subset of master data and historical data that you want? Or are you going to go down the route of installing a kind of an empty S4 system as part of a greenfield approach? But think about, as that landscape's being built out, so how are you going to be managing your lists of transports, your activities that you need to perform each time the next tier of your landscape is added? How are you going to manage that? How are you going to kind of work through those activities from a project standpoint? Even more important if you're doing this in multiple phases or waves. And lastly, you obviously at this point have to start thinking about the adaptation of your custom code. Consider the replacement of that custom code. Consider the refactoring of that towards clean core. Or that's obviously something that some customers decide to kind of defer, but then make sure you're planning to come back to that to look at it afterwards. And again, here, some of the other partners that we work with or integrate with, the likes of SmartShift, for example, focus in on that. And we have integrations around the dual maintenance that manage then both the customizing transports as well as the workbench transports that may be the ones that SmartShift is adjusting in order to prepare for the S4. And then lastly, from a post-transformation standpoint, think about the move to S4 as a catalyst. Are you optimal in the way today that you are working or deploying change? Do you still approach SAP projects as a waterfall kind of from historical reasons? Are you confident in the ways in which you're changing your SAP systems? Are you always clear on what the impact of those changes are? But start to look at and kind of consider the S4 project as a catalyst to change the way that you're working, both in terms of moving towards a more agile delivery approach, being able to deploy change more frequently into your production systems, looking to drive more automation. Automation is obviously going to be critical given the resource surge or peak that is likely to kind of come in the next few years with all of the parallel, not only ECC to S4 transformations that are underway, but there's also going to be a kind of a wave of S4 to S4 upgrades that are likely to build as well, because even some of the early adopting S4 customers are now out of support or reaching end of maintenance for some of those early S4 releases. So there's going to be more and more demand for skills and resources in the marketplace, and wherever automation can help you drive down the need for that manual activity, the better. Third one here, like I just referred to, the work isn't over. So moving to S4, I think the upgrade cycle is likely to be more frequent. SAP, as of this year, with the 2023 release, has moved to a 7-year release cycle with 2 years of feature pack stacks, followed by 5 years of support packs for each of their releases. Prior to this year, each of the releases was a 5-year support, including 1 year of feature packs and 4 years of support packs. But just consider that once you're on S4, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's it. It could also be in your interests to consider upgrading more frequently to take advantage of the newer functionality that SAP is deploying in each of those releases. And lastly, consider the clean core approach, even if that's something that you defer to after the S4 transformation. How can you approach that to look at where you need to do it, to how much effort that clean core refactoring will be, and where can you take advantage of ongoing work to maybe do this in a phased approach, let's say. So moving on, this is kind of at a very high level how we help enterprise customers to accelerate their digital transformation, which is a lot of what we've been talking about today in terms of S4, but it's also about helping optimize and reduce cost and optimize resources, eliminating downtime, eliminating business disruption by helping to reduce both planned downtime as well as avoid unplanned outages caused by poorly handled change. Look to enhance the ability to enable continuous innovation. Everything to do with audit, governance, compliance, etc., and looking around the whole, bringing SAP out of its kind of corner and integrating SAP into the broader enterprise ecosystem. So many of our customers want to connect their SAP change into their enterprise tool chains, looking at things like ServiceNow or Jira or Azure DevOps when it comes to kind of triggering change and handling the lifecycle of requirements. Also, all the way through to orchestrating change across your SAP estate, across your SAP and kind of BTP estate, as well as between SAP and non-SAP. So we have companies or customers that are orchestrating change between SAP and non-SAP, linking the likes of ActiveControl to other pipelining tools or capabilities such as Jenkins, GitHub, GitLab, or also Azure DevOps pipelines. So we've got 2 products, as you can see on the left. ActiveControl is focused around the change and release automation, and ActiveDiscover is focused around change impact analysis. not only from a kind of a testing standpoint, but also from the perspective of effort and scoping and understanding even before a change is made, kind of what risk or what opportunity that change has, how it's being used, where it's being used, which may influence the decision on whether to perform that change. And this includes the whole kind of range of changes from customer-driven, business-driven changes through SAP support packs, OSS notes, enhancement packs, etc. Next slide, please. Some of our customer case studies, I'm not going to kind of read these out. You will get access to the slides, and you can find a lot of this sort of information on our website. But these obviously talk a lot better to the value that we bring than I can do. And I was a customer, so I did come from Procter & Gamble after having brought this software into the company before I swapped sides and joined Basis. And on the right-hand side, you see some of the real-world examples of how we've helped customers significantly reduce cost, drive out a large portion of the manual non-value-added work within the change processes, significantly speed up the rate at which they're able to deploy innovation, and all at the same time as reducing and risk and downtime across their SAP landscape. So a few takeaways, and then I think we have some time for questions. So if you haven't started to do so, have a think of questions and please drop them into the Q&A panel. But a few takeaways. I think, Martin, first one is for you.
Yeah, so one of the key takeaways we've got today is, are you struggling to get started? So we're finding a lot of companies are. And what we do is the T-Systems step-by-step approach with the Magenta Pathway is a really good start for getting those conversations running and looking at all those things that you can do. So the one thing to do is get in touch with us, and we can actually guide you through some of these things.
Okay. Secondly, I'm assuming you want to avoid the change freeze, so think about how you're going to be executing your dual maintenance. Automate it. Ideally, if you're handling a large volume of change as part of your ongoing business, and make sure that you don't stop your business during the S4 transformation. Take a look at, I mentioned one of the things earlier around looking at your target landscape design. Take a look at our most recent ebook around global templates. Again, that's on our website. And use that as kind of some thought material to kind of think about how you would want to set up your landscape moving forwards, assuming it's not going to be a kind of a one-to-one brownfield big bang transformation. And lastly, connect with us. So I think on the next slide, some more QR codes. Feel free to scan those and reach out to both Martin and myself for any kind of further deeper dive on anything we've covered here, or anything more generally around your S4 transformation, or for us managing your ongoing change within your SAP estate across all of the different technologies. Okay, so now questions. Who has the list? Don't think we have anything yet in the chat. And if we've got a shy audience. If, like I mentioned, though, if you want to ask some direct questions to us, if you don't want to kind of do it in the public forum, then that's totally understandable as well. Feel free to either email Martin or I, and similarly, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn at the QR codes that you can see on the screen. I think the materials will be provided as well as the recording. Take a look at some of the details and links in more detail, but other than that, I think we are. Oh, here we go. We've got a couple of questions starting to to drop in. So maybe first, well, both of them appear to be linked to licenses. Martin, I'll maybe let you answer this one. Do you know, do you have to license ECC and S4 at the same time? And then the second question, any advice or tips from a licensing viewpoint?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're able to do is we use one of our partners for Snow for landscape licensing viewpoints of your landscape. So we can actually do an in-depth analysis on the current licensing that you have with your ECC systems, so that we can then push that. You can then use that to work with SAP on your licensing. So that would basically be able to look at the licensing you have today to the licensing that you need in the future with SAP, and then they'll obviously probably try to push you either the RISE option, or you can still look at the perpetual licensing option yourself, and that with them. But that gives you that greater viewpoint of what licensing you'll have, because you probably would have been sold lots of licensing within your current landscape, and then you would probably not be using an awful amount of that. So you could seriously work that through with SAP then to say, well, for S4, your licensing future would then be this.
Okay, thanks, Martin. There's a couple more in the chat that I'll pick up. So one is, do you see any value in upgrading existing ECC systems to the latest enhancement pack before starting the transformation to S4, or does the starting point not really make any difference? So I think it depends what your starting point enhancement pack is. For sure, there's a difference in terms of your support lifespan. So if you're running enhancement pack 0 to 5, then the end of mainstream maintenance is actually not far away. It's kind of 20 months or so. It's at the end of 2025. And there's no option for extended maintenance if you're running one of those enhancement packs. So you would immediately go on to what's called customer specific maintenance, which is fairly limited in terms of what you get. And also it's kind of T&M based. If SAP encounters something, or you encounter something that SAP needs to fix that they haven't seen before, you'll be charged on a T&M basis. If you're running on enhancement pack 6, 7, or 8, then you have 2 additional years of mainstream maintenance. So that's the kind of headline 2027 date. And you have the option of purchasing extended maintenance, which is equivalent to mainstream maintenance, but it costs normally 2 additional percentage points on your maintenance kind of rate. And you have to have committed to S4 before you can take out that extended maintenance. And that gives you an additional 3 years. So it could be, if you're unlikely to be able to start your S4 transformation before or complete it before the 2025 deadline, doing a, call it slightly easier enhancement pack upgrade on ECC could buy you some additional runway and the option of the extended maintenance if you need, let's say, that much more time. I'm not aware of any technical restriction that says you can't upgrade from enhancement pack 4 to S4, for example. So I don't think there is a need or a requirement from that perspective. But I don't know, Martin, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, I don't think there's any problems with the upgrade as such, but I think it's, if you're on certain releases, then you can't even move to ASE as a temporary database. So it's really looking at those other critical dates. So looking at if you're Unicode compliant, obviously that's 2025 as well, when you're end of support for that system as well. So moving really to EHP8 and to ASE or HANA, I think, is the from 2027 to 2030 is the only option, I think, from that side of it. So if you wanted to go beyond 2027 and we're still doing that migration, then I think for support you need to be on EHP8 and that one of those two databases. But I think now with the other database manufacturers now extending their support as well, the database side isn't going to come into it as much as what it was going to be before. But I think the EHP8 from 2027 to 2030 is still a key date.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from Swami. Dual maintenance, coding or change for project and BAU, how is that managed with ActiveControl? So ActiveControl is a change automation workflow solution that handles normally all of the life cycle of change within your SAP landscapes, and specifically during an ECC to S4 transformation, it helps in the coordination or the governance of changes that are being originally authored in ECC that need to be considered for dual maintenance or synchronization into S4, because your S4 project could run for many months, if not years in some cases. And from the very beginning, when you first create your development environment in S4, the business doesn't stop. They continue to need changes. You're continuing to kind of maybe build reports or do configuration, etc., for that business. And all of those changes need to be considered. Some of them can be automatically dual maintained if they are in an area of the customizing that is not impacted by what's called a simplification item. Some will need to be considered and will need to be manually dual maintained because there is some form of difference that SAP has introduced. And like I said, for workbench objects, that's also relevant because you'll need to look at how to merge the code refactoring you've done for your custom code. And again, that depends if you're handling that manually or if you're looking to bring in other best of breed partners like SmartShift in that space, who we also integrate with. Question for you, Martin, how many customers are seriously considering RISE?
Okay, so that's quite a difficult question, really, because it all really depends on the way that your licensing is structured. And this is why it's quite key to understand the licensing that you've got and what you can do. So SAP is obviously now trying to push customers as much as possible to go the RISE route, because it then encompasses the infrastructure and the managed services directly from SAP as well. But a lot of companies really can't do that. So it's really that they're still trying to go the standard route. So there's currently around over 28,000 SAP customers and that still need to look at moving to S4. So there's only probably around 7,000 customers that are fully on S4 at the moment. So there's still a lot more to go. So I think it's going to be quite interesting over the next 2 years at least of how SAP manage that and how many customers are either forced to go to RISE or if they change the way that RISE is structured.
Okay.
There's another one on what happens to SAP BW as you move to ECC to S4. So there's obviously a S4 for BW available as well, but SAP is starting to move a lot of its area in that side of it to something called DataSphere. And that, so I think that is another product that's coming up, but a lot of customers are also looking at how they move to more data lakes within public cloud as well.
And a potentially related question, how does Snowflake help with S4, Martin?
Snowflake, I'm aware of Snow. So Snow from our side is our a licensing partner that we use for analyzing licensing, and that really gives a good understanding of the current ECC licensing that we can actually use to move to S4.
Okay, and if the question is related to Snowflake in terms of more data lake, then I think it's an alternative to some of SAP's offerings or kind of some of the hyperscaler offerings around kind of managing large amounts of data. But I don't think kind of it would be positioned directly by SAP, at least as directly related to the S4 transformation itself.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks for the questions. Great to have some interaction. I think we're approaching close to time, so I'm going to pass the ball back to Toby for the final survey and things. And as mentioned, feel free to reach out, connect to Martin or I for any further follow-up conversation.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Martin, for that. If that is all the questions, which it seems to be, we will end it there. Thank you all for joining. Once again, thank you, Martin, and thank you, David, for coming on today. And we'll leave it there then.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.